community from a 12-step and a biblical perspective. Every week we have someone to come in and they do the first step and their Bible scripture go to the first step, and we do what right to do. We praise songs and worship songs, and if you get here, we let Jordan he plays his guitar, and if you get here, some of you guys, y'all sing songs, and it's always a rotating community. So within 28 days, there's always a new face. So the service always going, right? But the spiritual service been here for a while, and we're going to let Cricket, he's going to come up, and he's going to talk about the spiritual service, how long it's been here, and how it affected the community, and how it's going to continue to grow, right? And I remember early on, years ago, when I used to come and I used to watch the spiritual service, and I don't know if Jesse changed things, but the whole community used to come, and I used to be excited. They brought me in one time to be the speaker. I'm like, wow. You know, and then one day I hear a family member come in and they was a speaker. And then I hear the child of a father who was a drug addict, and the child was a speaker, and everything was just so spiritual, so impactful. And then the pandemic showed up. And that's when I sat with Jesse, and I sponsored Jesse. So both of us in a 12-step community. And we made a decision, and John and the Honest and Cricket support whatever happens here, because that's just the love he got for the community. The brain breaking the bondage in. And next week will be our second anniversary, and we've been operating successful. When everybody else was closing down, the machine stayed open. Matter of fact, they did new things. Eyes haven't seen, no ears hear of anything like breaking the bondage. And they brought us in, and we've been rolling, man, and we want to continue to roll, but we owe it back to you guys to have the spiritual service in place. So the spiritual service is going to happen hey, right, you can turn that down now. Appreciate it. The spiritual service is going to happen every first, and I want y'all to hear this, right? Not only is the spiritual service going to happen every first service, or every first Sunday, I also want you guys to invite your family, man. Remember what McShin is about: healing family and saving lives. Invite your family to come out on the first Sundays, man. You know, and if they want to, hey, they could bring some bacon, they could bring some fried potatoes. I mean, they could bring some fried apples. You know what I mean? We can have a spread. We ain't always gonna have donuts and coffee, because you realize downstairs, Bobby and the team, and even some of y'all took time and y'all bought a hot meal. So as soon as the service over today, you know, you guys, we're going downstairs and we're gonna break bread. We know the flyer said from 9:30 to 10:30, but the only thing that's constant around here is what? Change. There you go. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be here, to be a part of the service. I'm not going to prolong you guys any longer. I'm excited. I know we got a great speaker, but before the speaker even come, before Jesse even come, matter of fact, I want to bring Cricket and Jesse up together at the same time, and they're going to share some great things with you guys, what's happening. I don't think I cover everything, especially the history, man, because this thing go deeper than what I see and what has happened. And how I hear the McShin Foundation Spiritual Service has actually changed people's lives. You know, so come on up, Cricket. Jesse, you two come on up, and you want to let Cricket go first? Okay, yes, sir. All
right. Morning, I'm Cricket. And I'm grateful to be a person in long-term recovery. I'm grateful for McShin, because I wouldn't be in recovery if it weren't for McShin. It's crazy, because I still, I've been in recovery and living this new life for 5.5 years, over 5.5 years now. Sometimes I still wake up in awe that I got the same clean day that I woke up with yesterday. It blows my mind, for real, man. If you woke up clean, clap. Hey, we clap when we celebrate stuff, right? We should celebrate that. There's people like us ain't supposed to wake up clean. We're not supposed to wake up with the same clean day we woke up with yesterday. And here we are killing it, man. And if you ain't grateful for that, you're missing it. Be grateful for that. It's a gift, man. That's a gift. And I don't know where the gift comes from. I'm just glad that I received it. Y'all hear me? Now, how many of y'all like history? Anybody like history? A couple of y'all? So real quick, we're just going to touch on McShin and the spiritual service history. So in 2004, husband and wife, John and Carol, y'all met them? Raise your hand. Cool. So in 2004, both of them in long-term recovery at the time, saw the need for people like them, which is people like us, who wanted to do something different. They couldn't get the help they were seeking when they needed it. Anybody ever been to a CSB or mental health or a government run and they put you on a waiting list? Yeah, that happened to a lot of us back then, man. And John and Carol, saw the need to open the doors for people like us seeking services the same day, man. And that's what they did. They formed McShin in 2004, and they opened their doors. They opened their own doors at their own house. Started out, they had one little room office, man. And over the years, we've grown into what we've grown into: 15 houses, 150 plus recovery support beds, this big recovery center that we have. But McShin, I like what you said. That the only thing constant is what? Change. Yeah, because we've changed. Not only have we as individuals, I know for a fact I've changed. I remember me 5.5 years ago. And some of y'all know me from 5.5 years ago. So I know I've changed, man. So I'm grateful also that the only thing that's constant is change. And McShin has changed so much over the years. So we've become more open-minded over the years. In the beginning, most of the supports that we gave were 12-step based support services. And then we started practicing the principles that we learned from those 12-step fellowships. One of those open-mindedness. So we started being open-minded to other pathways, man. And now for years, McShin has been not only supporting and endorsing, but providing multiple pathways to recovery, man. And I'm grateful for that too. So around the end of 2015, we were talking about, because one of the pathways that a lot of people in this world attain their recovery through is spiritual. Like they just have a spiritual pathway. And we wanted to be able to provide something. So we started talking about providing a spiritual service, a non-denominational spiritual service where we could worship any higher power, whatever that meant to us at the time. And around early 2016, we implemented it. And it's been going every Sunday since. And that has also changed. You're right. Like it used to be mandatory for all houses to be here on Sunday service. And that, of course, we only had 7 houses back then. So it was a full house. And every Sunday, like it was required if you lived in McShin, and you learned this at intake. That you would be here for the Sunday service. And over the years, Sunday service has changed. A couple years ago, we put our heads together, man, and were somehow able to talk Walt into coming in and putting his touch on it. And it's done well, man. We're grateful for you, Walt. Y'all clap for Walt, man. Because I don't know if y'all know Walt. You probably don't know Walt like I do, but I know this. He's been around for decades. And he shows up. He's here. He's committed to this. He shows up every Sunday. So thank you, man. But in 2016, when we decided to pull the trigger on providing the Sunday spiritual service, we started with staff who was already working here, providing a shot of hope every Sunday. And that person was Matthew, who's getting ready to come up here and speak in a minute. Now, I've known Matthew for a long time, long before either one of us ever decided that addiction wasn't a good fit for us and that recovery might be a possibility and a necessity for us. And I've watched him change so much over the last 15 years I've known him. Jesse, did you want to say anything before we bring him up? Yeah, I'm done. Yeah, I won't bring him up.
All right. Thank you, Cricket, and thank you, Walt. Good morning. What's up, everybody?
What's up?
How we doing? We all right? Yeah. I told Walt that I think Cricket would be better to come up here and give the history because Cricket has been intertwined with McShin a lot longer than I have. I didn't come through McShin. Some of y'all probably know that. Some of y'all might not know that. I'm not an alumni of McShin. I'm an alumni of the healing place down on the south side. That's why I'm always sending y'all there. So when y'all get in trouble, y'all always wonder why he's sending me down there. That place saved my life. So, but this place has saved many people's lives. And when my oldest son was in trouble, I sent him here. He came here. As far as the spiritual service goes, me and Walt, y'all don't see this, but me and Walt battle about this thing. right? We do. Me and him have these conversations, and they're healthy conversations, but they're disagreements. And a lot of it is it's based on there when you do a fourth step, there's some securities that you have, and sometimes our securities will get attacked, right? And we protect them. And that's kind of what happens in me and Walt's conversations. And one thing that Luna, I can't focus with you jumping behind me. What you doing, huh? Go sit with Ian. Where's Ian? Ian, come get Luna. No? So one thing that Cricket had said that Walt does is Walt is committed to this, right? He's very committed to this, and he shows up, and Walt does that in my life outside of this. He always shows up, if it's a football game for my son, if it's a party, whatever, he's there, right? And that's our relationship. So I've always been, go down there. Sit down. Not behind me. Thank you. So I've always been in support of what Walt does. So like some history with this is this spiritual service, like Cricket has talked about, has been going on for a while, right? It's been going on for a while. In fact, Matthew had asked me to speak at it one time, and I don't know what happened, but I didn't come speak. I don't. You gotta stop. I don't know. And I remember when Matthew asked me to speak, I was like, well, what am I doing? Am I speaking at an NA meeting? Am I speaking at what type of environment is it? I was trying to get a feel for what was going on. And I think he might have said, look, you got to speak on the step or something of that nature. But like something didn't happen. And I didn't show up. I didn't commit. I didn't not show up, but something, it just didn't work out where I could be here. So I didn't really know much about it. And when I started here at McShin, Pastor Terry, didn't y'all know Pastor Terry? Pastor Terry is the pastor over at the church that we rent this space from. He had started doing this service. And so he was doing the service. Thank you. Pastor Terry had started doing this service, but he's not one of us, right? When I say he's not one of us, he's not in recovery. Now he's a great guy, and he delivers a great message. But sometimes, in order to reach us, we need somebody that's like us, right? If that makes sense, that therapeutic value that we learn in the fellowship. So then COVID hit. Cricket talked about that, and things happened. And so I reached out to Walt, and I had put the bug in his ear about doing the spiritual service. And so my goal was not what had happened. Just keep it real. I'm a real realist, right? I'm gonna be honest with you. Like I try not to lie to y'all. Well, I don't lie to y'all. My goal was not what Walt did, right? That wasn't my goal, or what God did through Walt. Like my goal was Walt was just going to come do what Matthew used to do, right? And Matthew can explain what he used to do a little better, right? When he gets up here and speaks. But what ended up happening is Walt got up here and he kind of created his ministry, right? He created this thing, which it took off, and it's great, and we love it, right? Some love it, some don't love it, but it's been a blessing to McShin, and I think people have gotten in Walt's ear and are like, well, you need to go somewhere else, and you need to go over here and have your church and this and that, and Walt stayed committed, and he stayed right here, and he continues to do it. But one thing that's important to note to y'all and to anybody that's watching through Facebook Live is when we did the spiritual service, and when we do it every Sunday, and Walt comes up, it's not for McShin, right? This is for the community. That's what this is for. This is for everybody out in the community, right? So I think a lot of people get the fussing when McShin doesn't show up. Well, what about the rest of the people out in the community? Bring your family, bring your brothers, bring your sisters. Let everybody know what's going on Sunday, right? Because this is in place for the state of Virginia, Richmond, surrounding counties. Come on up here and hear a message of recovery. Hear Walt puts that biblical twist on it. Come out there and do that. But so that's kind of the backdrop with that, and the things that me and Walt, again, it's not that we're disagreeing, but we're trying to get to the solution to what's best for this community. And, you know, and a lot of times we gotta jump through hurdles. We gotta jump through personalities, you know, but ultimately, next, you know, what we decided after we were talking the other day, is we wanted to do an anniversary. And so Walt, you know, again, this is where we kind of, I still say bumped heads, but, you know, Walt was like, I want to do an anniversary for breaking the bondage. And I was like, well, look, you know, the anniversary is for the spiritual service, right? Because that's what we need to honor, the spiritual service, because that's what's been here and been doing this, you know, for years. And so we decided we were going to do a breakfast, and we were going to bring in, you know, the first person who started doing the spiritual service. And then next Sunday, we're going to honor breaking the bondage, which if we could get the word out to the community more, right, and we could get more support from the community, breaking the bondage could blow up, and Walt won't have to work at Hype Council no more. He'll be a pastor of his own church, right? But it's a matter of getting the word out there, because there's always been churches that have rented the space, right? There's back in the day, there was a church that rented this space from Hatcher, and they had their own church here every Sunday. You know, so that's not uncommon. It's just getting support from the community, because Walt has a great message, and he's a good pastor. He's kind of like our pastor. So that's what's going on. That's what's happening. So after Matthew speaks, Cricket's got a few more words he's going to say, because him and Matthew used to get high together. So they know each other, right? You know each other. When you used to get down together, you know each other. You know, and me and Matthew are close friends. We've had our disagreements over the past year, and it's kind of involved. It's really just it's really none of y'all's business, but but we love each other. I mean, that's my man, right? Like, you know, we've been tight. You know, I watched him, you know, come through McShin. You know, I like to try to tell him to wear it as a badge, but he don't want to wear it, right? But like, he's one of y'all. He came through here. Like, he's an alumni of McShin. You know, and I was fortunate enough to be a part. Like, we're around the same time. You know, about 6 months difference, and when we came in here, you know, so we got to see each other grow. You know, get married, have kids. You know, anyways, I'm gonna let Cricket say a few more words, but you know, I'm glad y'all are out here. After this, we'll go down and we'll eat some breakfast. Barbie, Tylene, Vanessa, they all, and Cricket made a dish that he said is like the best. I don't even know what it's called. Pumpkin pie, cinnamon, blueberry. No, it's hold on. It's blueberry cinnamon French toast. Blueberry. What is it? I was close. What's blueberry? What? Blueberry cream cheese French toast. It looks good. All I know is it looks good, and I'm gonna grub on it right after this, y'all. All right.
Hey, all that food he's talking about, like, he funded most of it. Some of us spent more than what was funded. Sure, we'll work that out on the back end of it. But that's just the type of stuff McShin does, man. That's why I love him. Like, anywhere I've been in this country, like, I do wear that McShin badge, and I don't like everything about McShin. I ain't gonna sit here and act like I do. I don't agree with everything all the time, but I like McShin, man. McShin is the only place that could ever really get to me and plant the seed in me that recovery is real, it's possible, and I deserve it. And so, for that, I'll eternally be grateful for McShin. Now, Matthew, when I got here, when I finally got, so Jesse's right, we got high a little bit together, man. I met this dude, I'm gonna tell this part. I met this dude, I was in full-fledged active addiction, and I was working for this floor company, man, and he's, you know, pretty well-off people in Ashland, man. They wanted us to do their whole house and this floor. So it was like a 4 or 5 day job. Anytime, like, in active addiction, like, if I work at somebody's house for 4 or 5 days, like, that's my house. So I act however I want to act in there. It's just weird, man. I'm so self-centered, dude. So I'm in there and I'm like singing, and I'm beating like the floor together, and I'm like singing at the top of my lungs because it's good acoustics in the house. And day 3, man, like, I'm at home now. I've been there 3 days, but day 3, man, like, me and my partner that I was working with, it was this dude balled up on the couch facing the wall. I mean, balled up, tiny too, man. He was like small. And I said, oh shit, man, I have to quiet it down a little bit before I wake these people up, man. And I kept noticing an hour went by, he ain't moved. 2 hours went by, he ain't moved. Well, he ain't moved. So I saw it's time for him to get up anyway. So I'm gonna start singing like I was doing, because he needs to go on and get up, because this is my house. And man, a couple of hours went by and dude didn't budge, man. I saw him shake. I saw him like shake a little bit. And I told my homeboy, I said, man, that dude on that couch is dope sick, man. And he said, no, man, ain't nobody in this house dope sick but you. Like, these people got money, they ain't nobody in this house dope sick. I said, look, man, I bet you $20, man. I ain't have no money for no dope. So I bet the dude $20, because I know a dope sick. I know he wouldn't give me $20 for dope. So I bet him $20 that dude was dope sick, man. And sure enough, that's what it was. And like, I was 15 years ago. And come to find out, like, he was out on bond. He had gotten some trouble in North Carolina, and his mom and them bonded him out, and he was sleeping on the couch until he could figure out what was next, man. Like, I was the first dude that he met here, and I used that to my advantage. Y'all ever done that in active addiction? Seized an opportunity and took advantage of somebody? I tried. He's pretty sharp, though. I couldn't beat him. But so I beat him a couple times, but I couldn't beat him like my disease wanted to beat him. Y'all hear me? But when I got out of jail for the very last time and came to McShin, Matthew was staff here. And I already knew he was doing good, because you know how when you're in jail, like, word gets back in about what other people doing, you know, who they dating now, where they living, are they on the run, they got off probation, you know, such got off probation. And like, when people are doing good, like, people talk about that, it gets back into the jail. And I had heard he was doing good. And when I got here and I actually saw it, it was like, wow, man, like, man, if Cunny can do this, man, I probably ought to have a chance at this. So, like, I ain't gonna talk y'all to death, man, because I'm real excited that he's here in the building today. I know what beef Jesse's probably talking about, but I know this: Matt's here today. Like, he's here today, and he ain't here for him. He ain't here for Walt. He ain't here for me or Jesse. He's here for y'all. So y'all listen to him, man, because this dude is killing it, and he started right here in these seats. All right, y'all give him a hand. Oh, real quick. So, sorry. We're going to give him another hand in a minute. As soon as this is over, we're going to meet for 5 minutes as a house meeting. So after spiritual service is over, we're going to stay in our seats until the other houses come in. And Christina and I just have 2 quick announcements, and then we're going to go eat. So probably around 11:10 is when we're going to be downstairs eating. All right, Matthew.
My name is Matthew, and I'm an addict, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to have the opportunity to be of service. And someone told me a long time ago, you know, when you get into recovery and whatever your pathway is, I'm a 12-stepper, and you're going to hear me reference that, you know, because that's the realm that I usually speak in. So I'm not promoting anything. It's just, you know, the avenue that works for me. And they told me, how do you make amends to God when you missed him your whole life until you got clean? And someone told me, be of service. All right, so what y'all see is me being of service. What you don't see is the effort that I had to put in to be able to get here. But I know how important it is for me and for someone that's sitting out there, right? And I take that responsibility seriously. Because, you know, I want to say in September of 2012, like, the message of recovery is what sparked my spirit for the first time in a long time while I was incarcerated. You know, someone brought a message in, and it gave me the sense of hope that I haven't felt in decades. You know, they told me hope is the first thing to awaken and the last thing to leave you. So think about that. If you're sitting here right now and you don't want to be here, think about that. Like, this hope left you? So I prayed to God to help me spark a little life in you this morning. You know, I was listening to everybody, and I was listening to Cricket just now, and it's I was sitting there thinking, I was like, yeah, I remember being dope sick on my mother's couch, and I could tell the Cricket got high, and I remember I asked him to get me something, and he played, all I can get you is some Vicodins. I said, no, what the hell is that gonna do? But I was better than Cricket at that time because I didn't have a heroin habit. I was on Oxycontins. I said, oh no, I don't do that. You know what I mean? I don't do that. And more will be revealed, right? We got there. We got there. I heard something yesterday, and I kind of want to, like, everything I talk about, I want y'all to think about this. And this is a quote. And someone that I look up to, he said this yesterday. I heard it on a video yesterday. He said, why do we expect unique results without unique relationships? I'm going to say that again. Why do we expect unique results without unique relationships? All right. And when I heard, I'll get in prayer before I got to speak, because I can come up here and wing it, like self-will and stuff like that. And I don't really like doing that because that's ego and false pride. And, and then all of a sudden I think I know something. So I try to get in prayer a day before. I'm in prayer every day, but I try to get in prayer before I got to open my mouth. And I let God, God, help me, man. Guide me where I'm supposed to go. And I heard that yesterday. And I said, man, that touched me. Because I think about the unique relationships that have developed in here, doing stuff like this, And that's what I'm asking y'all today. Like, what type of work are you putting in to have a unique relationship? Now, you want the unique result, right? Totally strung out, Now, like, I don't know if you had the gift of desperation like I did. Thank God for that. Because I came in here with, like, no idea on what to do. Like, I was at a level of surrender. Like, sometimes we like to hold on to those reservations. Like, man, once I get a couple days, I'll get this back. I'll do this, and like the unique relationship. Like, we got to do things, right? Like, kind of get rid of that idea. But that's one of the gifts, man, that you can't figure it out on your own. Cricket touched on that, the gifts of recovery. Where I'm at, my recovery, I notice the gifts and I appreciate them, but I'm grateful for the giver. And I know the giver isn't, Walt or Jesse or my wife or McShin or church. I know it's God. God uses these things because people there are in a place to receive him. And look, if God, you don't want to hear it, man, believe me, I understand. Neither did I. I remember when I first came to it, I seen, like, God in that third step, like, oh, we're going to stop there. I ain't trying to hear it, man. But I'm just so grateful, man, that my relationship with my higher power, the God of my understanding, has developed through time. And I'm going to share that with you. I'm going to try to share y'all my spiritual experiences, And I think about this service and how it started. And I remember sitting in John's office, 6 years ago, I guess it was. And, John, like, y'all know John, right? And y'all don't really know me, but, like, me and John we got along well, right? But I always wasn't buying everything he was selling, So John was starting to give me, he's like, man, I want you to run this service. I was like, man, bet, I got it. I already had a home group where I was getting speakers all the time. We were already mixed in with the church, and there was a lot of people that I'm an extrovert, so I developed relationships with people, and I knew their stories because, when you're doing well, people start telling you all about people they know and active addiction and how it affects them. And I'm like, man, I got it. I've been waiting for the opportunity. And John's like, well, I want you to watch this tape of this pastor, and this is how he does it. And I'm like, look, John, man, you need to practice, you need to practice some steps here, man. Trust me. Like, you think, and he's like, yeah, I will. And I said, we used to bump heads like Jesse was talking about. And I remember him, I said to John, because I was including my sponsor, who wasn't a part of, McShin, but just getting input from him, And I remember asking John, I said, John, what'd your sponsor say? He said, my sponsor? I ain't talked to him. I said, dang. I was like, he's like, you know him, don't you? And I said, yeah, I know him. You know what I mean? So it made sense to me in that moment. But, John, man, like, his vision and pushing and, like, all that, like, man, I was grateful for that. Because I remember one time working an event here after I've been here probably 3 or 4 years working, and this one kid I think it was Recovery Fest, to be honest with you. And you know how y'all like disappear, you know what I mean? Like, boyfriend, girlfriend shows up, or so many people you think you can, like, get away with whatever you want to get away with. So, like, the one kid, he's gone all day. You know, I know he's gone, but I was never one to come chase someone, right? Like, that's what I loved about here. Like, y'all want to leave, man, y'all can leave, man. You know, like my sponsor always helped me with, like, man, help the ones that want to be helped, right? Y'all showed up. You're here today. That shows some willingness, man. Like, I showed up. Walt showed up. Jesse showed up. Man, that's what we know to do, man. Just show up. And I remember this one dude, he was there maybe a week or two, and I liked him, and he was gone all day. So he comes back. I can smell the alcohol on him right away. I'm like, dang, man, like, where you been? Man, I've been here all day, you know, and I don't do well with, like, me, you know, a version of me I don't like. So when I'm seeing the old me in somebody, I instantly, like, I get riled up a little bit. So I'm going to check it, you know, like, I'm going to make sure I check it. And I remember arguing with this dude. And I'm like, look, man, we got too much. We're cleaning up after. We're going to be here till 10 o'clock. Like, I'm not going to deal with this. So this one kid, like, he was with us, and he was like, watch that. He's like, man, you need to go talk to him again. He's really struggling down there. He's talking about leaving and da-da-da-da. And I know better. Like, I know better not to go talk to him. So I did. I went back and talked to him, listening to this other individual. And, man, this dude got in my face. He, like, put his hands on. It got crazy, and he was a little guy. And I'm over there, everything I had in me, like, I got to practice principles. Like, it's easy to practice some principles when things are running smooth. You know what I mean? Now, all of a sudden, I got to practice some understanding of where he's at. I got to practice some perseverance in this situation, not to go where I'm comfortable going, you know? And I remember getting mad at the other dude who made me come back and talk to this dude. I always want to put the blame somewhere. The year's clean, right? And I remember that incident. And I remember calling, you know, staff, like, look, this is what happened. Like, we got to exit him, you know? And then that was on a Saturday, right? Recovery Fest was on a Saturday. I came back up here Sunday morning for spiritual service, and guess who's sitting in the front row? The dude. I'm like, oh, hell no, man. This ain't, no. Like, you know what I mean? Like, my ego kicked in, right? Like, man, this dude, like, this was difficult. And I remember looking at John and being like, man, look, dude, I'm struggling. I can't do this no more, man. I just can't. I'm tired of it. Because this was like a reoccurring thing at times. So this is for y'all, man. You know what I mean? Like, you know how when you outright defiance, unwilling, closed-minded, you know, those things that's centered in self-will. Like, when we act like that, which we understand because we've all been there. But it's hard, man, for the, you know, people trying to help. And I remember John turned the spiritual service into that, what I went through. And, man, all that resentment, all that pain, all that anger, you know, man, it was gone. It was lifted. And I saw the bigger picture, you know. So whatever you're going through, right, whatever's in front of you, it'll soon be behind you as long as you don't use, man. As long as you don't use, you know. And that's the beauty of this thing. Now don't think just because things get better when you put down the drugs. They do, man. They honestly do. But, man, that's just like the first part of the first step. Like, there's so much more to it. There's that spiritual growth. Like, I used to tell people, man, like, you'd sit in here like, man, I just used drugs because I liked it. I was like, man, if that's what you think, please keep coming back. Please keep. I thought the same thing too. But I actually did some work and found out some things and had some help walking through it. And I'm free from it. I'm free from those things that kept me stuck as a little boy. Kept me stuck in fear. You know, like that first time I drank and that first time I used, I thought I felt freedom for the first time. That's why I loved it so much. And I thought it was a substance that I loved. It was the escape that I loved. But on the outside, everything looked good. You know. So, man, look, if you're new, you know, and this is your first spiritual service, man, hopefully I can spark something in you. Hopefully God will use me to breathe some life into you. All right. So I love to share experiences that I've had where I know something greater was involved. All right. So some of y'all I've met, you know what I mean, because of what I do, and I'm not promoting it, but I own a barbershop right around the corner. So when I came home, I did 16 months on my last charge, which is like, you know, possession, distribution, you know, and another addict did what we do to get one more, you know. And I used to have a resentment towards that addict because of like, oh, you're not living by the street code. You know, you're not living by the street code. You wore a camera, you set me up and all this stuff. And I used to be locked up thinking like, you know, like I wanted to have that street pride while I was in there. You know, but I look back now and that was 10 years ago and like, man, look at my life. Like, thank God God used that individual to get me locked up. Because if that didn't happen, man, I'd probably be dead. I'd be dead, you know? And so when I came home, I had 16 months clean. I got introduced to 12 steps while I was incarcerated for the first time. Now, when I met Cricket 15 years ago, I got locked up then too, did 2 years. I didn't get introduced to any 12-step recovery or anything. I didn't have a problem. It was just crack cocaine was my problem, you know? And I'm grateful for that experience because when I got introduced to recovery, I was the right addict at the right time. I was desperate. I didn't try everything else, you know? So sometimes I look at, you know, what McShin does and people that come through, man, you're the right addict. It just might not be the right time. That's up to your effort. That's up to what you want. Like God's there. Just look for him. Right? Become dependable on him instead of yourself. That's what, you know, that's one of my prayers, man. Less of me, more of him. How do I walk with that? And it's not easy. But you know, when I came home, I came to McShin because I had nowhere else to go. Right? Like family, can't go there. We didn't been through this before, you know. And I remember, you know, like 12-step had H&I come through, but McShin used to come to where I was locked up a lot too. And there was other places you could go, like Jesse mentioned the healing place. It was like Rubicon. There was a couple other places I can't remember. But, you know, me, like I still had that dope fiend mentality. You know, I was like, man, look, I want to work out. You know, I love to work out and get into physical shape. I love the outside to look good. You know, so like, where can I go that has those services? You know, it wasn't about staying clean. It was like, hey, where can I go so I can go to the gym? I got to go see my PO and I need to find work. And it was funny because those other places were like state services and McShin was the only private place and it cost a little bit of more money. So in my head, I was like, man, if the state's providing, it's probably trash and filthy. Or if this one costs a little bit of money, maybe it'll be a little bit nicer. So I got on the phone. I worked my family to come up with some money, you know. And I remember my father, he was really willing to pay the money to get in here because I've never asked him for anything like this before. It was usually like, hey, man, give me some money so I can get an apartment. I'll get a job. I'll be fine in a couple months. And I came through McShin. They provided services for me. They provided me an environment, housing, a clean environment, housing, transportation, to and from PO. And they gave me a job within 30 days. But I had 16 months clean. So I knew a lot of what not to do. I didn't know what to do to stay clean. I just knew what not to do. So in the house, man, it was really valuable. Because here I am 34 years old and the majority of the house is 20 and 21 years old. And like some of these kids don't even know how to do dishes, don't even know how to make their bed. And I'm like, dang, all of a sudden I was able to be of service because, you know, my upbringing, I learned how to do that stuff. You know, that's always what I resorted back to when I got the drugs out of my system. I was comfortable there, you know, but the one thing I wasn't comfortable with was God. You know what I mean? Like I love being in an environment where I look like, hey, man, Matt's got his stuff together. You know, I got 16 months clean, you know, like, dang, this is awesome. Like no one there had that. I'm going to meetings downstairs and I'm sharing my butt off and everybody's shaking their head like, yeah, man, he knows what he's talking about. And I remember that. I remember sharing that and I remember sitting at my old barbershop where I was selling dope and I was telling everybody how we're going to do this and do that. And everybody be sitting in the barbershop shaking their head, doing the same thing. And I used to be like, man, nothing's really different except I don't have drugs in my system. Like something's got to change. You know, like I can't front here. Like I don't have that relationship, you know, and I want it. So then I started listening in meetings. I started listening to like when Walt would come. I made it a point to go up and introduce myself and get his phone number because I knew something was going on with him. When I met Jesse, same thing. You know, I was like, man, it's unique results, right? How does a drug addict get clean? That's unique, man. We had to develop unique relationships. I put the effort in, right? I put the effort in, man, make sure I meet these people. Hey, man, what's your phone number? Now, I also had a modem because I had a home group that was a speaker meeting, so I always had to get speakers. So I had to be the plug, and I loved that. Like I had to find people. I had a motive, but that motive was pure. That was more God-centered than self-centered. That's what the meeting told me to do. So I would introduce people. It got to a point when they would warn them about me. Like, man, look, watch out for Matthew. He's going to try to get your number, talk real good. Next thing you know, you'll be speaking in front of 150 people at the jail, And people used to come in there and it'd be packed because my home group was in the jail lobby in Henrico, because I had attachment to that because that's where I got introduced to recovery. But, when I came home and I remember, my commitment to myself was like, look, y'all told me to change people, places, and things. And I've been a barber since I was 21 years old. I love doing it, but I loved, the atmosphere of what was going on. The gambling, the drugs, the women, like I just loved that. And being needed, like people always looked up to you because they wanted you to make them look good. And I told myself, man, I'm not going to do that no more. I said, man, I'm done with that because I always got high. Barbershops aren't a good place to be. I couldn't see the fact that it wasn't the barbershop, it was me. It was what I brought to the environment because I didn't flip some shops over. I remember owners used to be like, man, what'd you do to my shop? Like, who are all these people? Like, what are you talking about? They spend good money. That was just my attitude. And I was at Smith House, getting the house up every morning, making sure they ate like egg breakfast, did the dishes, had our little, our feelings check in the morning, our prayer and meditation, and we'd walk up to the church. And every day we walked by a barbershop. And I stayed on the other side of the street. I don't want nothing to do with this place, But I would look over there and I would see people in the window. Here it is. It's 8 o'clock in the morning, 7:30 in the morning, and there'd be people lined up in there. I said, man, this old dude's there. He's busy. He's always got these people in there. And I remember one night there was 2 kids in the house, 19 and 21. I can't remember their names, but they were saying, hey, man, we're trying to get a job. We're out on bond. And then on the application, it asked if like you've been convicted of a felony. And then both of them, they have charges right now, but they're out on bond and they're not convicted. They're like, what do I do? Like, how do we fill out this application? And I said, well, here's the reality. You haven't been convicted. So if you say that you haven't, you're not lying. But if you do get convicted and you still have this job and they do a background check, you're going to get fired because now all of a sudden it's going to show that you have a felony. I was like, what I would suggest to do is be honest, fill out the application and go take it to whoever the manager is at the store and just be real with them. Say, hey, look, man, this is what's going on. And they're looking at me like I'm crazy. They're like, what do you mean? I was like, it's online. I said, well, print it off online and fill it out. They're like, what? And they're like, well, what do I say to them? I said, man, you just go in there and you just talk. You just say, hey, I'm so-and-so. I would like a job. And they couldn't understand it. And then I realized, I was like, dang, man, all these young kids, all they do is talk on social media. They might not have some people skills of like, being face to face with somebody. They're more comfortable behind the screen. And I'm not comfortable behind the screen. I'm still not comfortable behind the screen. I'm better, but I'm not comfortable there. I'm comfortable face to face. So I said, man, look, every morning we walk by this barbershop. Y'all come in this barbershop, watch me talk to this guy. I'm not asking him for a job. I don't want to do that, but just watch how I communicate with this guy. So here we are the next morning, walk across the street because, they had to get their monsters and their cigarettes at Exxon. So then we did that every morning, and I'm like, man, y'all using, y'all addicted to this stuff. And so we walk across the street and we walk into the barbershop and I start talking to this guy. I said, hey, man, how you doing? He's like, man, I'm good. How are you? And we start talking. He's like, man, are you a Yankee? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I said, yeah. I was like, yeah, a Yankee, like from up north? He said, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I was like, well, it depends. Do you have a problem with them? He's like, man, I love Yankees. I just can't stand the damn ones. And I was like, a damn Yankee? What's that? He's like, that's the ones that move down here and never go back home. And I started laughing. I said, well, that's me because the state got me. I can't go nowhere, So we start talking and he's like, hey, man, you cut hair? And I was like, what? He said, you cut hair? I said, well, yeah, I used to own a barbershop out in the East End. And he started laughing. He's like, man, I remember you were the one that got in trouble. It was on the news. They raided your shop for selling all those drugs. And like, here it is. There's like 7 or 8 people in the barbershop. He's cutting someone's hair. I got me and these 2 young kids from the Smith House trying to show them how to talk to somebody. And like everything's out on the floor. Like, my truth. Like, dang, how did I know that I was going to get exposed like this? But I was okay with it. I said, yeah, that's me. Then he looks at me. He says, man, you in the program? I was like, what? Program? Like, you mean like 12-step? He said, yeah. I said, man, I wore it like a badge, man. 16 months, man. I got 16 months. That's all I had. I had 16 months. He laughed. He said, man, so am I. He's like, years. He's like, but it's not consecutive. He's like, you'd have to ask my wife how many years I had in a row. He's like, I used to celebrate every 90 days with a drink. That's what he told me. Then he looks at me in front of all them people. He's like, man, you want a job? And I was taken back, like, what do I want? I don't know. You're like, he's like, you want to go talk to your sponsor? Go talk to some people and get back to me? I said, yes, I do. And he said, look, I don't care if you want the job or don't want the job. All I ask is that you come back and tell me. He said, because the only way I can keep what I got is by giving it away. So at the time, I came back. I talked to John. I talked to some other people. I called the guy. He wasn't my sponsor yet, but the guy that I was talking to, and I asked him. And all three of these individuals told me, like, look, if you get an opportunity to work with someone that's in recovery early in your recovery, you take it. Now, I'm talking about my decision, right? No more barbershops, no more cutting hair, none of that stuff. But the guidance of the program, the relationship, the unique relationships, the effort that I put in told me to do it. So I started working there. Started 2 weeks later, I came back and told him, within 9 months, the man gets sick. Now, he's 82 years old. The man gets sick. I run the shop for a whole year. Take the rent money that I'm supposed to pay him, and I put it in his safe. So when he came back to work, he had a nice chunk of change. All of a sudden, trust started to develop, right? Like, he started letting me run the place. And here I am thinking, like, man, I'm never going to do this again. Like, I wasn't going to do this. This wasn't my plan. But I followed what the program talked about. Now today, like, me and my wife own the building. You know? It's not about the gift, though, man. It's about the giver. I would give that up if the relationship with God, man, to see how God works in that environment with people, with the community. Like, here is a person that was strung out, man. From 2006 to 2012, I only was out of incarceration for 2 years. 135 pounds, man. People look at me now like, you smoke crack? What? Like, I have empathy for that addict, right? I have a little understanding. So when I have, as a barber or a bartender, like these, people talk to you, they open up, and I can always give them perspective that sometimes people don't understand. Like, I'm of service. It's bigger than the haircut. It's bigger than the $20. It's bigger. It's like God's driving it, man. And now what's taken place since I've been there, man, the things that I could describe, spirituality, knowing that God's something greater is involved, man, it's amazing. It's amazing, and I don't want to sit up here and I'm going to give you one quick story. It's probably the most profound one that I've still had in my recovery. But, this was probably right before the owner got sick. I was working one morning, and it was funny because I was weekend staff up here. Weekend staff really didn't exist until they gave me that job, and they kind of made it happen. Because on the weekends, everybody had freedom at the houses, and house managers were supposed to take care of everybody. So everybody kind of just dipped off, got high, came back on Mondays. It was lines, taking drug tests. It wasn't working. So they're like, man, look, we're going to give you this job. You and this other lady are going to do it. And y'all are going to run group. You're going to keep everybody at the church, and there's just going to be accountability, And I remember, and that was cool. And that's one of my character defects, man. I love to run, alpha, hey, man. So they used to try to get another staff member, to have a female work with me. And I was like, man, look, that drives me crazy. Because the more staff members, the more answers an addict can get, and they seek the one they want. Right? So I tell you no, you run to the next one to find out what you want. I know the dope fiend behavior. So I know on the weekdays, there's 9, 13 of y'all up here, and y'all run around and get that answer you want. And John used to come up here, Mike used to come up here on the weekends, and they were always blown away. They're like, man, how is it running so smooth? I was like, well, there's not 13 of me. There's just one. No means no, man. If I hurt their feelings, I'm not worried about it. I don't care about how you feel. I care about how you live. Right? And if I'm making friends, I might not be doing my job. I care more about your life than our friendship. But if you stick and stay and you do something different, man, you know how many times people came up there and they said, man, thank you, and give me a hug. Man, I see what you were trying to do back then, and it wasn't personal. But I remember being at the shop, and I'm on the phone because the new help was not able to work that weekend, which was happening all the time. This young girls call me, hey, I can't make it this weekend. I said, don't call me, call Honesty. You know what I mean? Call her. So I'm on the phone. I'm at this barbershop. And all of a sudden, where my shop's at, there's a vet right next door to it. All right. So a lot of times animals are always on the block. There's a pet store and a vet and then the barbershop. So sometimes people walk in the door and there'd be a dog or, I don't know. I've seen chickens, I've seen lizards, I've seen everything where they walk in the wrong door. So next thing I hear this bang, and I'm like, dang, and I see this furry thing run down the hallway. And I realized, man, like, and the girl on the phone, like, man, what was that? I said, man, someone's dog just ran in here. You know what I mean? And I'm talking to her, and I'm like, okay, yeah, you ain't going to be there this weekend. No problem. I got it. And then I go look around the corner. I look at my door, and the door is shattered. It's not my door. This is Charlie's door at the time. But the door is shattered, and there's blood on it, and the glass is broke. I said, dang, what was that? And I turn and I look down the hallway, and there is probably like an 8-point buck in the barbershop. Right? It's slipping all over the floor because it's tile floor. It's like there's a hallway there, and it's like it's knocking stuff over. And I'm like, oh shit, like what are we gonna do here? And so I'm sitting behind this partition, this wall, and like the owner is actually in the back, 82 years old, trying to change the oil on his truck. You know what I mean? Old school, like save a buck. That's how he was. He's outside. He wasn't even in there. And as I'm looking out the front window, there's a lady and her daughter walking into the pet store. And I said, hey, look, I got to open this door up. There's a deer in here. I'm going to try to open my door up. So my door opens up inside so I could like stand behind it. So I open the door up. I guess the deer hears outside. It's slipping all the way up. It runs through, and it takes like 3 leaps, and it's across Lakeside Avenue behind Franco's and gone. And I'm looking around, and I'm like, man, no one saw this but me. I got a smashed door. There's blood on the wall. There's 2 broken mirrors. And I'm like, oh, I got to go tell this dude that a deer ran in here and tore up his shop. He's not going to believe that. He's going to think I owe someone some money or something like, oh, your past is coming back to haunt you. You know what I mean? So I go outside and look, and then I look next door at the vet, and like all 3 of the techs and everybody in there was standing there looking at the window because the lady that I said something to went inside and told them. So they all seen it. They all seen the deer. So I had a little relief, like, oh, okay, he's not going to think I'm crazy. So I go in the back. I tell the owner what happened. He's like, son, I've had everything in my barbershop. I've never seen a deer on Lakeside Avenue. So he comes in there, and then the way the sun hit the floor, you could see all the hoof marks on it. And like, not that he didn't believe me, but it was just a little reassuring that he didn't question me. Here I am, I'm right around 2.5, 3 years clean, and I still had that little, like, I'm still wearing what I used to be. That transformation's taking place slowly, but I still have those insecurities. Like, everybody's going to judge me on what I used to be. I'm not trying to be that no more. And that was one of those things where it didn't take place there. So, like a good addict early in recovery, like everything's God's involved. Why did this deer run into the barbershop? I got to see the message in this. I got to figure it out. And what didn't help is I just watched Noah with Russell Crowe like 2 days before that, where he could talk to the animals and all this stuff. So I'm over there like, I'm like obsessing about it. Like all day I'm cutting people's hair. I'm telling the story over and over. And I think finally at 4 o'clock, I just was like, man, look, man, deer just ran the shop. It don't mean nothing. It doesn't mean anything. So I had this customer that came in at the end of the day. He was a very religious customer from a different country. He was one of those guys that would want to he always tell me, man, he's like, your energy, there's something about you, in his accent. And I didn't have a lot of customers, so I'd always cut his hair every 2 weeks. And then after we cut his hair, we'd go outside and he'd pray over me. Like standing outside, touch me and pray. Now, 5 years ago, I wasn't letting anybody do that to me. You know what I mean? I still thought it was a little odd, but I was like, man, look, he's got like a relationship with God. I'm trying to find one. Like, why not? So this day he comes in there and he's like not in a good mood. And I'm like, man, what's going on? He's like, man, I had this dream. I've been having this reoccurring dream, Matt. And he's like, I just don't feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, like what God wants me to do. And he was a teacher. He's like, man, I'm about to take this journey just on faith, leave everything I got and go to like a third world country and like try to help. And he's like, but I'm like, I don't know if that's what I'm supposed to do. And I'm like, dang, man, like that, I was like, well, let me tell you what happened to me today. So I go into this story about the deer running into the barbershop. And as I'm telling it, this individual starts to cry. And then when I'm done telling the story, I look at him like, man, I was like, what's wrong, bud? He's like, Matt, I never told you like how I got so close to God, did I? I said, no, you never did. And I never really asked because I just figured it was personal. He said, man, he's like, when I was 13 years old, I got lost in the woods by my parents. And I got saved by a deer in the woods. It kept me warm. It kept me, that was my spiritual experience. So here I am. I'm in a place of not knowing which way to go. And then you tell me this story that happened to you today. I know what I'm supposed to do. So right there in that moment, I knew that God was using me to help other people. For the first time, I felt that. Spiritual in nature. If you miss the spirituality, you miss the whole part of the program. Now, I used to go into Richmond City and carry a message for 4 years, every Wednesday. All right. So I'm in there and I'm telling someone that story. And there was this one kid that I knew that I was locked up with before. He kind of always run his mouth, always get beat up, like someone you really didn't mess with. And here he is, and I see him. He doesn't really remember me, but I remember him, and I tell him that story. And this individual comes up to me, and he tells me, he says, "Hey, man," he said, "the deer is your spiritual animal." I was like, "What?" He's like, "Look it up." So I went and looked it up. And I was amazed by what I learned about my characteristics, the good qualities and the bad qualities. And it talks about the deer, and people believe in spiritual animals and all that stuff. And I never believed in it, but I read it, and it fit me to a T. And I said, man, here's this dude I didn't want nothing to do with, giving me a little information. So let's fast forward 2 years later. Right? I got my license back. I got my girlfriend, who's now my wife. You know, I have a 17-year-old son now that lives in Ohio, was raised by his grandparents, because me and his mom in active addiction, they got custody. I also have, I'm married with 2 little beautiful children now, but I have three children total. And it's the first time that I'm driving me with my license, not on a supervised visit, to go get my son and spend some time in Pittsburgh with him. So I'm pumped. Can't tell me no different, And as I'm driving from Virginia to Pennsylvania, then to Ohio, I'm in West Virginia and I'm speeding, trying to make good time. You know what I mean? The GPS says one thing and I'm like, man, I'm gonna beat that, So I'm driving and I hit a deer on the way up there. Hits the side of my car, bumpers on the ground and everything. I'm in straight panic mode. Like, man, I said to my son, I'm gonna be there. I think he's 8 or 9 years old. Like I told him, I promised him I'd be there. Now my car might not be able to make it. So I got some tape and I fixed it up. And then we get to my dad's house in Pittsburgh. And my dad's like, man, go see this mechanic. We'll go in the morning. He's like, I'll go get your son. And I'm like, man, you've been getting him for years. Like, it's not about, like, I got to do it. Like, I don't want to get my car fixed. It can make it, He's like, man, just go get it looked at. If it can make it, we'll let you drive. Now, my dad's got a nice Lexus. He ain't giving me that. You know what I mean? He don't know. Like, man, this thing might disappear. He's like, I know you got a couple years clean, but our vehicles can disappear with you. I don't know. So I'm like, man, I don't want to go do this. And right now I'm doing an 8th step, with my sponsor. And there's it's about forgiveness. And I'm really struggling, like, with my relationship with my father and my family about, I like to blame, you know what I mean? And like, hey, I was brought up this way and, he was there, but the way he did it, I didn't agree with. And I wanted to point the finger and I was struggling, like, on forgiving my father. And, he was old school. Like, you don't talk about stuff. You just do stuff and act like everything's fine. So I was comfortable with that too. And I remember, like, finally taking the car to this mechanic, and I'm in panic mode to go get my son. And my dad took me over there too. And he's like, hey, look, the mechanic looks at it. He's like, look, the tape you got on the bumpers will be fine. We just got to change these 2 light bulbs and you'll be good to go, and then get it fixed when you get home. He's like, it's all cosmetic damage. You'll be good. So my dad's like, why don't you take him down to the Advanced Auto and get the light bulbs? I was like, all right. So me and this mechanic, who was a family friend of my, and he's my dad's age. So we're in the car, and this mechanic knows my story because my dad talks to him. And then the mechanic begins to tell me stories of my father with my great-grandfather when he was a kid, because he lived upstairs above their business. And he's like, man, like the stuff your father went through, how abusive your great-grandfather was, like, man, like, the man he's turned into, I'm amazed by it. So all of a sudden I'm listening, right, to like the stuff my father went through, and like to see him be there for me and not do the exact same thing, similar stuff, but like what he was taught, he's doing better. All of a sudden I was able to forgive, man. All of a sudden that stuff was lifted off my spirit, right? The deer, the spiritual animal. Without that accident, I don't get that conversation. I just wanted to go get my son. Like something else is in charge. Something else is guiding this thing. I just got to be in position to understand. I will stand there and fight with it. But then it's like when I let it happen, not that relief, like we chase that relief sometimes, which I understand, but it's bigger than the exhale. It's knowing that something's covering you. 2 weeks ago, my 3-year-old, sitting in the back of the car, driving her to school. We pray every morning, right? We pray for her friends, her teachers that I've never met, you know, just teaching them something, like stuff that I wasn't taught. My daughter says, Daddy, I just had a dream last night. And she's funny. She'll like, sometimes I know she's making it up. Other times I know she's actually telling me about her dream. This time she's telling me about her dream. She's like, Daddy, I had a dream. I said, what was it? He's like, man, we were in the woods. He's like, and it was this big deer. And the deer told me to tell you that he loves you. You know, those moments is what it's all about. Spirituality, man. Like, and being of service. So if you get an opportunity to do something different and someone asks you to do it, man, don't say no. Don't say no. Don't expect unique results without unique relationships, you know? So I appreciate y'all's ear, you know, and hopefully y'all got something out of what I shared. All right. Thanks for letting me share.
Yeah, that was great, man. Unique results without unique relationships. You know, it was in October, I think it was October the 21st, Matt, 2017, 5 years ago, right? I had the honor, you know, to marry, you know, do the ceremony for him and his wife. You know, that was an honor, right? And check this out. 2 years ago in October, I had the honor of doing the ceremony for Jesse and his wife. Wow, you forgot about that? You ain't forgot about that. Yeah, and check it out. Next Sunday, hey, Ratner, can you put that flyer up? Next Sunday, it'll be 2 years that Breaking the Bondage of Addiction Ministry has been here at the McShin Foundation, man. You know, today we are celebrating the spiritual service. And look, this is it. This is how we're going to look the first Sunday. We here, man. We're Breaking the Bondage, not going nowhere. The spiritual service. What's going to happen? Chelsea, where's Chelsea at? Chelsea, she's part of the alumni committee here at the McShin. She's going to bring a speaker. Here you go. This is the first alumni, the speaker who brought the spiritual service. So look, right now he's alumni here at McShin. He's here. You know, Art is alumni, but Chelsea, she's going to be bringing the speakers in every first Sunday. We're going to feed you guys a breakfast like one out there right now. So we're going to bring Cricket up. Cricket got a few more words he want to share before he release you guys, you know, to go down there and have that great breakfast, man. You know, I'm excited. I'm excited about what the McShin has done, continue to do. You know, the spiritual service, man. Spirituality, man, is your concept, right? The God of your understanding. You know, and like Jesse said, man, you know, I got this religious spin, you know, the 12 step, and there's a spiritual principle in each step. You know, that we're breaking the bondage we do. We collaborated too. Some people still have resentment against going to church. And that's okay, because you're not supposed to go to church. You're supposed to go out into the community, you know what, and tell them to come into relationship with the God of your understanding. This just was a place that they came and got some guidance and direction. But your assignment is to go out there and find those other recovering addicts on the corners, you know, the ones who got the cup, I work for change. That used to be us. Don't forget where we came from. Send them here to the McShin Foundation, where we're about healing families and saving lives. So next week, the speaker who I got, his son, man, his son, I wanted to bring him here, but he's a family member. So I don't want to have a conflict of interest because I work here. I still work here part-time. I was full-time. So I sent him down to Florida, the gay lab. And that's his father, man. His father cried out for his son. But his son just celebrated his first year. So next week, I got the father come here to talk about healing family and saving lives. That's what McShin is about. So we got a speaker who's going to come from New York next week, right, for the celebration of the second anniversary. And I'm excited, man. I'm excited that McShin just bought community, man. You know what I mean? And so we're going to be here. So you guys, y'all going to come back and we're going to celebrate. But right now, we're going to eat. Y'all ready to eat? All right, come on up here, Cricket, and do what you got to do, man, so we can go ahead and do what we got. Hey, Ratner, man, I love you, man. That look, you talking about commitment. When Jesse talk about commitment, man, I got 2 sponsees that I tell you, man, the level of commitment. Rodney's committed. Rodney came through the McShin Foundation. And come on, man. Come on, Rodney. Let's give it up for Rodney. Come on, man. We're going to bring you down here to be a speaker one Sunday, Rodney. Thank you, Cricket.
I know what I said, but we're going to do it a little different than what I said. Because like Walt said, the only thing that's constant is what? Change. Yeah, change. So I changed my mind that quick. So if no staff in here has any reports or announcements they need to make, Jesse, do you have any announcements or reports you need to make? I've checked with everybody else. Y'all go enjoy some food. Have a good Sunday. Oh, but close it out with the serenity prayer. So how you do it, Walt? Just stand where you at?
Hey, here you go, real quick. Hey, you guys on I want to bless the food real quick. Hey, can you not go out the door? Come on, real quick, right? God, we just want to thank you for this food we are about to receive for the nourishment of our body. For your sake, we thank you for all things. In your precious name we pray. Amen. Here you go, serenity prayer. God, grant us serenity to accept the things you cannot change, the courage to change the things you can, and the wisdom to know the difference. All right, y'all go eat. Make sure the staff eat first, but y'all go eat. Woo! Man.